Hello Targar friends. Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another org mode workout. And today was dynamic effort press day. This is going to be a pretty long workout, guys. It's going to be long because the volume is going up. And it's like I told you guys, my volume is going to get higher and higher over time. As I build my work capacity, we get into better shape, especially these dynamic days, because these are my real volume days. But, even the max effort days, the volume is going to go up with accessory work, assistance work, things like that over time. But today, on my 3 exercises, I did 12 doubles. 12 doubles with compensatory acceleration. So for those who are trying to understand what's going on with this, what we are doing is taking a weight that's somewhere in the range of a 6 to 7 rep max and doing high volumes of doubles, exploding with the weight as hard and as fast as I can. In other words, treating every single rep like a 1 rep max. Now, because I'm doing 12 sets, I'm getting a lot of first reps. A lot of first reps, a lot of practice on the setup, a lot of practice finding the ideal bar pass, right? So that's a lot of what's happening here. It is about building technique, building explosiveness, but doing enough total training volume with quality sets that hit the upper threshold fibers that we are getting a very, very significant hypertrophic response. So this is training explosiveness, it's training speed strength, it's training starting strength, and it's getting a lot of training volume. And so again, this is going to be the biggest hypertrophy day. And then that feeds into the max effort days coming later, feeds into them. So on this, I started with the floor press and did 12 doubles. For those curious, it's just 255, right? You guys have seen me floor press, 305 last time I attempted it recently with a nice pause max off the floor. It's a training max. And I'll try to increase that next time. I'll try to keep bumping that up. We want to get that above 315 again. And for those who are unaware, the floor press is harder than the bench press. You will not be able to move your max bench press on a floor press. You're not going to be able to do it. The amount you lose is really going to vary based upon the person. So 255 for 12 doubles. Now, what you need to remember too, breaks are relatively short on this style of training, and it's not for any reason other than just getting the workload density in and to keep the time reasonable. And if you're in shape, that's fine. As long as you're in decent cardiovascular shape, you'll have no trouble doing this. And again, it's because we aren't doing limit sets. You're not building that deep fatigue that you do on limit sets if you either hit a max or you go to muscle failure, things like that. Because normally longer breaks, when you're going near failure, longer breaks produce greater hypertrophy. The studies are pretty clear on that at this point. But when we're doing submaximal sets like this for explosiveness and compensatory acceleration, we don't generate the same fatigue. Not only do you not generate the same fatigue, you still get the upper threshold muscle fibers if you lift the weight hard enough, right? If you explode hard enough, you still get the upper threshold fibers that you would get on a limit set, but we aren't generating quite as much fatigue until you get near the end. Now, you start doing 10, 12 sets, you are generating that sort of fatigue though eventually, but it comes later into the session, right? It comes later into the session. And what you end up with is a lot of really high quality reps, a lot of really high quality work, a lot of first reps, and a total amount of quality reps that would be equivalent to a very, very high volume workout. Because normally what happens, if you do a 10 rep set to failure, you get 5 reps that recruit the upper threshold fibers. Whereas if you're doing explosive work with even a 6 or 7 rep max, every rep is hitting the upper threshold fibers, right? So if you did 3 sets of 10 to absolute failure, you would only get 15 of those reps that hit the upper threshold fibers. In this case, we're getting 24. So this is the equivalent of doing more than 4 sets to failure in terms of quality reps that are going to reach the upper threshold muscle fibers. So from a volume perspective, it's quite good. But it's combined with the fact that we're training starting strength, we're training explosiveness, training technique, getting first reps in, all added together. So the effect is that of, again, high volume training. It's higher volume training, and especially when you do like what I did today, 12 doubles with 3 different big exercises, then my accessory work, right? Then the tricep work at the end, which really turns this into a very, very high volume tricep day. And of course, I'm going to do abs and face pulls and stuff later because I do those every day. So we'll get more delt, bicep, core volume, all of that stuff. But yeah, this ends up being a ton of volume, an absolute ton of volume. So I've noticed I kept decent speed all the way through. I felt like my first set, it started out slow, but as I got several sets in, I started getting faster and faster, and I felt like the speed was picking up. And I'm going to need that. And I'm not going to lie, my wider grip strength is a little weaker than my close grip because I've trained exclusively close grip for so many years that I feel like I'm losing strength with a wider grip, even though hypothetically I should be stronger. Because even for me, my wide grip, my pinkies are on the rings. That's not a super wide grip by any stretch. I could go out several more inches and still even be a meet legal grip. But because I've trained close grip forever, I feel like that's really what I need to do. All right, it's what I need to do is bring it out, work on it, and eventually get to where my wider grip is stronger, because eventually that will occur because you have better leverages, you have more muscle fiber involvement, and the range of motion is reduced. In theory, we should be stronger on the wider grip, but I haven't trained it. And I've developed so much strength the other way that it's not quite there. So I need to keep working on building that strength. And I think the floor press is a good way to do that. So I'll do that for all my dynamic effort work, which is where more of my training volume is. And that'll hopefully bring all the muscles involved up. So again, more pec and everything else. Then again, I did 12 sets of the press. Now, again, you guys know that I press over 200 pounds. So we're only doing 170 for 12 doubles. But again, compensatory acceleration. Exploding with the weight as hard and as fast as I can. You treat every rep like a 1 rep max. Grip the bar as tight as you can and explode. So again, the exact same thing occurs. This ends up being 24 total reps that hit upper threshold fibers. You would have to take 4 sets to failure to do that. But we're doing this in a way that gives us more practice with first reps. So it ends up with really good workload density. Now, people are wondering, what do I mean by shorter breaks? Like 90 seconds. On the pressing, all this pressing, because I'm doing a lot of it, I'm taking about 90 seconds. I would probably cut it down to 60 if I was only doing one press exercise. But it ends up being so much total volume with 12 sets of the 2 different exercises that I'm taking like 90 seconds or so between. And then the rows, I'm only taking 30 seconds. I did about 30 seconds between all my sets of rows. I did about 30 seconds because that's a much lighter weight. I recover from it easy. It's a weight I could do a 10 with if I had to. So I'm not worried about it, just getting in and just getting that explosiveness back. And as soon as I feel explosive again, just grab it again and go. So it's around 90 seconds for all these presses and then 30 seconds between the sets of rows. So again, keeping the training density relatively high. Not that that necessarily matters. It's been debated over the years, and it doesn't really appear that workload density is that important for hypertrophy. Hypothetically, it could be, but I'd say it's more of just a conditioning thing more than anything else. It's a conditioning thing more than anything else. So maybe it adds to a little bit of extra conditioning, which I need to improve upon. It's something I'm working on these days. And the press just went really good. At no point did I really feel like I slowed down. I felt like all the way through on the overhead press, the standing press here, or just the press as we often call it, old school. I might start calling it the orc press, right? To piss people off. So I felt like I stayed explosive all the way through it though, all the way through. And other people have noticed when I'm putting on the blue shirt, they're saying, yeah, you look bigger than we thought you were wearing the black. And I appreciate that, guys. I've got a few comments on that. You know, I mean, I obviously lift. You don't weigh over 200 pounds, bench well over 300 pause, press over 200, deadlift over 500, all those things, and not look like you lift. I mean, come on, people need to be realistic about that stuff. I think almost at this point in the game, what people mean by is, do you even lift, is do you look like you're on trend, right? If you don't look like you're on trend, that's what they mean by do you even lift. They should just change it to do you even trend, bro. Because tons of guys, I know guys out there who are way bigger than me, and they're even on juice and on gear, and people will still pull that do they even lift just because they're not really lean and peeled and ripped and don't have that trendy look. So I think that's kind of the standard that's been set these days, is that you almost have to use trend to look like you lift for a lot of guys who just aren't really genetically gifted. And even if they're really small, people are like, oh man, they look jacked even if they're 160 pounds. So, you know, who knows? I mean, we live in such a bizarre world and the online fitness community, just the level of ridiculousness sometimes. But it is appreciated that some people have noticed, yes, I actually do look like I lift in the blue shirt. Because, I mean, I obviously lift. You guys are seeing me lift, right? You even lift, bro? Got that work mode dad bod. But I digress. Back to the training. Rowing went good. Actually, I lied on the number of sets. I thought I did 12. I thought I did 12. And then when I started putting the footage up, I realized I had 13 rows filmed. So I actually did 13 doubles instead of 12 doubles on this one. But they felt good. I mean, they all felt nice and explosive. Felt them in my biceps a lot. And I know that's a point of contention. People always say, oh, of course, because you're doing all biceps on your rows. And it's like, then why is my back so big and my arms so small? You know, everyone always says that, like, all my back work, everyone's like, you're just using nothing but arms. But then when they do see my back, especially the shirtless back stuff I've done, they're like, oh my God, your back is enormous. It's your best body part, and you have tiny arms. And it's like, well, clearly I'm not using my arms that effectively on all my back movements, if my back is the only thing that grows. So just an interesting point of contention, you know, when people point that out. And it could just be maybe I only feel rows and pull-ups and everything else in my arms because my arms are the weak link, right? My biceps are the weak link and my back is pretty jacked and my arms aren't particularly big, you know, all things considered, for my size. Yeah, compared to the average lifter, gym bro, my arms are probably pretty big. But compared to my size, my body weight, my lean body mass, because we've seen my DEXA scans, my arms are not particularly big. They're really probably my smallest body part. So, you know, you got to be realistic about these things. And I'm not a bodybuilder, so it doesn't matter that much. But I do need to bring them up because at the end of the day, if something is aesthetically a weak point, maybe it's a strength weak point too. In a lot of cases, that is true, because you know what did the whole classic aesthetics thing come from? It came from looking at athletes originally, people who were strong. So you know there's something to be said for that. There's something to be said for that. And if you're thick overall and you have a lagging area, that lagging area might actually be a strength limit for you too. And I think that's the case, which is why I'm putting more focus on my triceps now. I feel like my triceps, I mean, look at them there. They're my weak link. They're my weak link on some of my big lifts. So I might as well bring them up. There's no harm in it. There's no harm in it. If they look like a weak link and they feel like a weak link, I might as well train them more and bring up that weak link and get stronger. Sounds reasonable to me. I don't know. I can't find a flaw in that logic. I can't find a flaw in the logic, even though I'm not big on small exercises and people spending a lot of time on weak points. I can't find a flaw in that logic, so I might as well do it, right? Might as well do it. So that's what we do next. 3 sets of Skullcrushers. 3 sets of Skullcrushers. Now, interestingly enough, it's people always say things like, I don't like the way you do your lockout at the top on these. Well, it's like, maybe that's why I don't get tendinitis. Yeah? Maybe that's why I don't get tendinitis. Maybe you don't want an enormous amount of pressure on your tendon on the lockout. Just saying. I'm doing these for the stretch reflex anyways. You know, I'm trying to get the long head. I mean, we're working all 3 heads, but the long head is probably getting neglected the most. Long head is largely responsible for my overhead press strength. And if you get stronger at the overhead press, your bench goes up. But for me, the press, the standing press is a primary exercise. I treat it like a primary exercise. I train it like a primary exercise. So my assistance work needs to address that. And if I know bringing up my long head will improve one of my big 4, because it does play a serious role, and Charles Polquin wrote about that a lot back when he was alive. And I mean, we can say what we want about his nutrition info and supplement scams, but the guy was a good coach. He was actually a legitimately good strength coach. You know, he talked about that, the long head and the standing press. So I might as well make sure I bring that head up. So I'm going to put quite a bit of extra focus on it with my accessory movement choices. And again, that'll make my triceps bigger. I'll look thicker. I'll look bigger. And it will improve one of my big 4. And if it improves one of my big 4, that one actually carries over to the other thing. Your overhead press does carry over to your bench. So I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Actually, 3 birds with 1 stone. How's that for orc mode? All right? As good as it gets. So why not? I'll go ahead and focus on it. Doesn't take that much time out of my day. And that's kind of the point I make with people. There's nothing wrong with carefully utilizing correct smaller movements. You shouldn't build your entire program around them. And you do them at the end, right? You do them at the end and you make them count. You don't just pick mindless exercises and say, I need to hit this muscle from 12 different angles. Figure out where you need to focus on it, figure out what you need to do for it, and beat away at that one thing, all right? Because if you're not doing enough compound movements, if you honestly think you have 3 or 4 different missing angles on some muscle, find one thing that really, really brings up your weak link and train the hell out of it at the end of your workouts. It's not that hard of a concept, guys. It really isn't. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.